Welcome back, Sebastian here. So time for my review for the 2024 Dutch Grand Prix. Pretty interesting Grand Prix, a bit more overtaking than I think I was expecting going into the race. But that being said, I think the result that we expected going into the Grand Prix this morning is kind of the result that we get. So to start with, Norris on pole, Verstappen P2, the top 10 drivers all on medium tires, Albon and Magnussen both starting from the pit lane, but for different reasons. Albon, of course, very good qualifying yesterday, but was unfortunately disqualified for having an illegal floor. Magnussen, I think, just wanting to change some of the setups, change some components for hopefully having a better Sunday. But yeah, those two drivers both starting from the pit lane. Verstappen, very good start. He takes the lead into turn one. And I thought, this is really a continuation of kind of Norris's struggles the last couple of races, where even though he's starting on pole or very close to the front, he's had a habit of losing positions on the opening lap. Russell, also a good start up to P3, and Sainz as well up to P9. Lap 2, Hamilton, who of course was starting down in 14th after a really poor qualifying and that grid penalty, he overtook Tsunoda for P12 at turn 10. Lap 5, the commentators were talking about how there was a tailwind down that main straight, and generally when you have a tailwind going down a straight, it means that overtaking is a little bit harder, but it turns out that wouldn't be too big of a issue today. Lap 6, Magnussen has a bit of a mistake. He goes through the gravel at turn 1. Lap 7, Sainz overtakes Alonso for P8 at turn 1. So drivers still able to make overtakes at that turn 1 overtaking spot if they had enough pace in hand. Lap 10, Hamilton overtakes Hülkenberg for P11 up to turn 1, and lap 11, Sainz overtakes Gasly for turn 2 for P7. Very tight battle, that one between Sainz and Gasly, but both drivers kept it very clean. Lap 13, Norris gaining slightly on Verstappen, and then he is within DRS range. So for those first 12 laps or so, Verstappen was keeping Norris at bay, about a gap 1.2 seconds, so just outside of DRS, but Norris was starting to gain at that point. Lap 14, Hamilton gets into the points, overtakes Stroll for P10 at that first corner. Albon, the first driver to pit as well at this point, and the following lap 14, Hülkenberg and Tsunoda both pit to cover the Williams driver. Lap 16, Hamilton overtakes Alonso for P9 at turn 1. On lap 17, Norris puts Verstappen under pressure within DRS range at this point, and looking like he could potentially make an overtake. Lap 18, that overtake comes, Norris overtaking the Dutch driver for P1 at the first corner. Of course, all the Dutch fans in attendance, of course, since it's the Dutch Grand Prix, probably not too happy to see that overtake happen. Lap 20, Verstappen was able to hang on to Norris for a bit, with that DRS staying within DRS range. Lap 22, Leclerc putting Piastri under pressure for P4, I believe that was. On lap 24, Hamilton, who of course was starting on those soft tires to try to get the advantage early in the race, pits for hard tires and comes out behind Tsunoda. So quite a far ways down the order, so he had a lot of overtaking to do. Lap 25, Leclerc is the first driver on the medium tires to pit, and he comes back out in 9th. Russell loses a position to Leclerc in the pits, undercut by the Ferrari driver, and he also had a bit of a slow stop as well. So both of those things contributed to him losing that position there. At this point, Norris has a 5-second lead, so Verstappen not able to stick with the British driver. In lap 28, Verstappen pits for new tires. Norris follows him the next lap to make sure that he's not undercut, and he stays comfortably ahead. Perez has a bit of a slow stop, 4.4 seconds on lap 30, and he almost loses a position to Sainz, who comes out just behind Perez after pitting right after Perez the following lap. Lap 32, that two Aston Martins who had been inside the points at this, they decided to pit quite late, and when they came out, they were down in 15th and 16th. So I wrote on my board too late ? As I wasn't sure if they were going to be able to make up those positions that they had lost. Waiting for that so long for that first pit stop. Lap 34, Piastri pits down in 6th. And of course, again, similar strategy to the Aston Martin, hoping that that extra purchase, extra grip later on in the stint would make up for potentially losing track position. Lap 35, Gasly noted for pit lane release. Looked a bit scruffy there with the mechanic on the front right wheel, but they decided no further action for that. Lap 38, Stroll gets himself a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, pretty much a slam dunk. I wrote it as soon as I saw that it was noted. Lap 39, Norris's lead was up to 10 seconds. Lap 40, Piastri overtakes Russell for P4 going into turn 1. So good pace from Piastri there early on in that stint. Lap 41, we then had a pretty interesting 5-car fight going through the banked final corner, and that ended up with Gasly moving up to 10th place and Magnussen falling down to, I think, 14th or 15th in that fight. Lap 45, Sainz tries to make a move, but very, very close on the exit with Perez, but next lap, a couple laps later, he would eventually get that move done, overtaking the Mexican driver at turn 1 for P6. Lap 49, Hamilton pits for soft tires, so a bit of a different strategy for Hamilton, but given how early he stopped, it was kind of almost a necessity at that point. But that being said, he did have 23 seconds in hand on Hülkenberg, who was the driver behind him, so it was basically a free pit stop. So yeah, he pits and he stays in 8th place. Lap 54, I believe, Piastri is starting to fall out of DRS range of Leclerc, so that aggressive strategy that McLaren put Piastri on, not really working out at this point, didn't have the extra pace to be able to overtake Leclerc or potentially challenge Verstappen. Lap 55, Russell pits for soft tires from 5th place. This was a really strange call, I felt, from Mercedes. They felt that they were going to lose the position regardless to Sainz, but they still dropped a position to Perez. And as things would turn out, it really felt like they just kind of lost a couple of points for no reason at the end. So again, a bit of a questionable strategy there from Mercedes. And he basically, I wrote, he needs about a second a lap on Perez, and this was at lap 55. So he came out about 15 seconds behind Perez with about 15 laps to go. So basically had to do a second a lap there. On lap 60, the gap was down to 10.72. So with 12 laps left, again, a little bit less than a second, but we know that the soft tires are going to be much quicker early on in the stint, and then they're going to degrade quicker as the stint progresses. So not really seeming to make up enough time, I felt Russell was. Gasly battling Hülkenberg for 9th place, and he would get that position. A really good race from Gasly, overtaking Hülkenberg on lap 61, turn 1 to get into P9. And then a couple laps later, lap 64, Hülkenberg, unfortunately, really good pace, but I think obviously benefiting from pitting so early, being the second group of drivers to pit or back on lap 15. The tires were just a bit too old, and he is overtaken by Alonso for P10 at turn 1. Lap 68, Russell Perez gap 7.2 seconds, but only 4 laps left. So again, not enough laps left to be able to make up that gap. And even this guy, commentators were contemplating whether or not they would ask Hamilton to go through, which I think would just be that would probably not sit well with Russell, especially after how things went in Belgium. Final lap, Norris, dominant race, 22 seconds, lead, 22.8 second lead on Verstappen. He takes the fastest lap on that final lap for good measure, takes the checkered flag, wins his second race this season, second career win as well. Definitely a massive, show of strength from Norris coming out of the summer break. And again, I think constructors, we know that's definitely going to be a very tight fight between Red Bull and McLaren. But again, with that super dominant display, I think there are going to be some questions about, could Norris potentially challenge for that driver's championship as well. So joining Norris on the podium, Verstappen and Leclerc, I think really good race from both of them. Verstappen, of course, had the lead early in the race, just didn't have the pace to hold on. Third was fourth Piastri, I think a bit disappointed there. 5th Sainz, 6th Perez, 7th Russell, 8th Hamilton. Yeah, definitely a really disappointing weekend for Mercedes given how things had gone right before the summer break. 9th Gasly, 10th Alonso, 11th Hülkenberg, 12th Ricciardo, 13th Stroll, 14th Albon, 15th Ocon, 16th Sargent, 17th Tsunoda, 18th Magnussen, 19th Bottas, and 20th Zhou. So all 20 drivers finished No yellow flags, no crashes, no safety cars. Very, very clean race from all drivers today. So looking at your championship standings, Verstappen, of course, still in the lead, 295 points, but Norris 225, so only 70 points behind. And again, with nine races left, Norris is going to have to take just about 10 to 12 points per weekend off of Verstappen's lead. And again, that's not what happened here, but that's something that that's what Norris would need in order to potentially win that championship at the end of the year. Leclerc in third, 192 points, fourth Piastri, 179, fifth Sainz, 172, sixth Hamilton, 154, and seventh Perez, 139, Russell in eighth, 122, and then a big gap down to Alonso in ninth with 50, 10th Stroll, 24, 11th Hulkenberg, 22, 12th Tsunoda, 22, 13th Ricciardo, 12. Gasly moves up into 14th with 8 points. Behrman, of course, not racing, just that one race in Saudi Arabia, down to 15th with 6 points. 16th Magnussen 5, 17th Ocon 5, 18th Albon 4, and then Joe Sargent, Bottas all on 0 points. So there you go. There's my review of the 2024 F1 Dutch Grand Prix. I think considering the track, considering that overtaking is pretty difficult at this track, I thought it was a decent Grand Prix. Pretty dominant display by Norris, and again, we'll see how things go next time out at the Italian Grand Prix, which is only in a week's time. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.